What's up, everybody? Would you like to know how to think critically? Well, you're in good company
Yeah.
because so would I. But today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to think critically. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. I'm Randy. That's Danny. What's going on, Danny?
What's up, Randy?
This is pretty interesting because normally for these quick fixes, the ideas come very, very quickly to me. This was the hardest one we've done out of, I don't know how many of these we've done, probably like 50 or 100 so far. This was incredibly
Done a
hard
lot.
for me to figure out how to think critically.
But I think this is one of those things where it's one of those things where every industry, every education system loves to talk about. They love to tout critical thinking, how important it is, but nobody seems to like explain it ever, give a clear definition. It's there's always this sort of like air of vagueness around it. Like where it's like
Well,
not
when I
clear.
was trying to think of it, I was trying to think like, what exactly does this mean? I was thinking of that cartoon TV show, The Critic, and I was like, is it trying to think like him, like Jay Sherman?
Be
And
critical.
it
Yeah.
stinks.
Yeah, I guess like that's it. That is funny, dude. Like, what does it? I think it means like I don't it's kind of hard because it is hard to define because I think it depends on the way you're looking at it. It could mean many different things. I think at the very least it means like exploring things in a way that's deeper than you normally would. That's takes into account more things. That's more outside the box, maybe. That's more open. I think being open to things is important. There's a lot of things you can say, but it's not like it's not clear ever. Yeah,
Yeah, that's what I got from it, that it's like another level of thinking.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
people will say, think creatively or think or just think, but this is think critically. Like it makes it seem like it's very, very important. So,
Yeah.
anyways, that being
Yeah.
said, we're just going to share three
Being said,
ideas for how to think critically. I'll go first because I introduced the episode. My first one is whenever you're thinking about something, also think about the opposite case because that lets you see both sides of the coin. Like oftentimes people will see percentages like, oh, there's a 76% chance that this will happen. And it's like, yes, but there's also a 24% chance that it won't. And a lot of people miss out on that stuff. So I think it's important to consider the opposite case for whatever you're thinking critically about.
yeah, I think that's like probably one of the most important things is like, it's like we see this all the time where people like, they watch the news and they only watch one station and they only get one perspective. Or the whole thing with COVID and when they were giving us all those numbers during COVID, but people not really actually looking at the other side and understanding what those numbers mean and, being able to make sense of them. It's like instead of just taking things at face value, right? Looking at that other perspective, trying to kind of even challenge yourself. I think that's super important for critical
Yeah,
thinking.
or putting it in perspective. I saw a news headline that some new virus infected 34 people in China and nobody died. And it's like, wow, 34 people in a population of a billion? Do you realize
And no
how
one died.
negligible that is? That's
Yeah.
nothing, you know?
Oh my God, that's so yeah, it's like, and I think that's part of it is like challenging yourself and also seeing, not just limiting yourself to one perspective. That's really good. Yeah. It's a good one. That goes nicely with my first one too, which is I always ask questions and always be willing to ask the hard questions because I think that is like part of learning how to think critically is really just learning how to ask good questions and learning how to ask effective questions and not being afraid of them. Because I think that's like most people are afraid to like ask that next difficulty, right?
That's a great one. I've been watching a lot of Columbo recently, old detective show from the 70s, and he's great at asking questions because he always has and one more thing. And he's always just asking that next question. He's always asking the next one, and he gets the criminal to kind of give themselves away by doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my second one for how to think critically is take your time. So I think this is important, particularly in this stage, because we're all very much rushed, and maybe we don't. It's hard to have that time to sit around and think about something because so often, if we have time, we're gonna do pleasurable things. We're gonna play on our phone. We're gonna watch TV. We're gonna watch, do all types of things. Maybe sleep. Maybe who knows, eat instead of actually just taking the time to think about and think critically about the important things.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's like slowing down, taking time. It's funny. I forget the exact number. Like they say, like Aristotle, for instance, like they say, like his complete body of written works, if they all survive, we don't have all of them, would have been like something like 40 volumes. in the modern way of printing and all. And it's funny, but like, you think back, like there was no TV, no social media, none of this. Like people had so much more downtime. These great works of literature written in the past that are thousands of pages that are really, you know, high level writing. I think that it's kind of a product of having that downtime, right? Giving yourself that time. So I think, yeah, I think that's it's crucial. If you want to think, you have to give yourself time to think, and you have to give yourself time to like kind of sit with things and reflect on them. And the constant push and constant rush distracts us from that.
And on the flip side of that coin, you also have to keep out distractions because I heard something just recently that, compared with someone 200 years ago, the amount of information they would get in their entire lifetime, we get that in a year or less. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like filtering out the distractions and the noise and all that stuff so you can actually spend it thinking about what you need to.
yeah, yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking that the other day because I was looking at books and I was like, oh my God, there's so many that like it's like just unending, right? Stuff you can learn. And it's like, yeah, you gotta also give yourself a chance to actually do the things you want to do. That's a good one. My second one is pretty straightforward, but listen. I think a lot of times critical thinking is thwarted by, you know, people believing they're right and sort of just, blocking out anything else. And I think, if we really do listen to others, we hear their perspective, it might help us form ideas. We get a better sense of like how other people see the problem. All of that is crucial to understanding it in the broader perspective or the broader, from a broader standpoint.
Yeah, that's a great one, listening to others and even listening to yourself. Because I think a
Yeah,
lot
that's
of
good too.
times people have ideas, but they disqualify themselves. They think they're not good enough. Maybe they're not smart enough or whatever. And so they don't even listen to their own ideas about whatever they're doing.
That's like how many times I've heard people, where they're like, oh, I had that idea when something comes out and like making money, and it's like, well, you didn't, you weren't confident enough in yourself, or you didn't listen to yourself, so you didn't, go for it. Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, talking about listening to yourself, this is an excellent segue. Thank you, Danny, for my last
no
one.
problem. Anytime.
Meditate on it. So I've had some of
Yeah.
my most profound thoughts when I'm like deep in meditation. And I'm not, I mean, for me right now, meditation mostly comes from Wim Hof breathing because it's like a quicker way to access that
We
soundness.
know.
I know. I mention it all the
I just
time.
get. I know.
But it
I
makes,
know.
it's
No, it's
so
good.
much
Yeah.
easier than actually meditating. Because meditating is painful. You got to sit in the same spot for 8 hours on end. And, you know, Wim Hof breathing, you just breathe and then hold your breath and let it go. And that's it. And it's pretty, but it's pretty deep. It's pretty profound. And when I'm in those deep levels, stuff pops up.
Well, it's funny. It's like I think meditation is crucial. I think that's a really good one. And when people hear that a lot of times, I think they do get I notice it does turn off a lot of people because it's like, oh, it takes time, you gotta learn. And it's like, well, you already do it though. If you really think like when your ideas come in the shower, you're basically in a meditative state, right? You're doing something you've done so many times. You're letting your mind just kind of clear while you do this process, and then your mind's free to sort of work out these things. So I think if you ever had that kind of epiphany happen, you've already seen the value of meditating, and meditating is just trying to get into that state on your own rather than you know when it just happens. So I think, yeah, it's a
Hmm.
good one. We need to give ourselves that time and designate time every day to give ourselves to kind of just clear our heads and let our brains sort of process.
Because it also allows the subconscious or the unconscious or that other
Yeah,
part of our mind to work it out, as opposed to just the rational brain. It allows the other part of it to
yeah.
work on it.
Consciousness is crazy, isn't it?
Mm,
It's like
tell me
so
about it.
confusing.
Tell
Yeah.
me about it.
So my last one, and I think this is important, which is try to see things from many perspectives. One of my favorite quotes from Nietzsche, he's a perspectivist, and he said, he kind of rejected the idea of like objective truths, and he thought that the closest we can get to objectivity is to see things from as many perspectives as possible, because then we understand its meaning and is from as many different points of view essentially as possible. And I think this is a really important thing for critical thinking, which is, just we have this tendency to emphasize like specialization now, and I think that's really detrimental to critical thinking. You really want to broaden your horizons, broad perspective, to see the thing really in and the different kinds of problems that might arise. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that we all think that our subjective experience is correct? and we let like other people and whatever happens in reality piss us off because we're like, it should be my way. It's not
Yeah.
fair. The universe sucks. Wah.
Well, I guess we're most familiar with ours, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
It's funny
But yeah,
though.
that's a
It
great
is
point.
funny.
Taking a look at all the perspectives, putting yourself in other people's shoes. So there you have it. 6 quick tips for how to think critically. This is the Existential Stoic Podcast. Check
Mm.
us out on YouTube and all your podcasting services. I'm Randy. That's Danny. I'll see you later, Danny.
Later, Randy.